You're listening to In Kap We Trust for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANYP Podcast or on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such eager my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of In Kap We Trust here at the Always Next Year Podcast. I am your host, Shane. I am joined by Rob. As always, Rob, how are you?
As a Phillies fan, not great right now, but life goes on.
Okay. What is that? Vitamin what? I think. I don't know. There was a fucking graduation song at some point. That's the main lyric in it. Can't recall it. Showing my age in that moment. I just remember she had like orangish hair and it was strange. Rob is eating throughout this segment, so if you hear food noises, it's because I kept him too long in our inaugural Eagles segment, Backyard Beers and Football, which if you have not listened to it by the time you listen to this, please listen to it next. Rob, what are you eating for dinner?
Down.
What are you eating?
I'm eating lasagna, actually.
Lasagna.
That's one thing that I actually know how to make in the oven. So,
didn't you say that you don't like Italian food, even though it is
I make
all
an
the same?
exception for lasagna. Lasagna is actually pretty solid.
I'm confused where the difference is amongst any other Italian food, but the fact that you're eating it, I approve. I appreciate it. Thank you. I think I'm going to make Italian food for myself as well later. I think I'm just going to make pasta because I am running out of time tonight, so I will eat after the segment. But we were supposed to have all of our writers on tonight, Rob, and we couldn't get a time that worked for everyone. So for anyone who is listening to this now, we have added, I think, 4 Phillies writers, 3 or 4 Phillies writers at this point. Jeez, I'm blanking on how many we have now.
Alongside a lot more than that, but yeah, I think you're right.
It may be. Well, I mean, I write the Phillies, you write the Phillies, and Scotty writes the Phillies. So, we have several people now covering Philadelphia Phillies baseball now that we are in season.
We're struggling to find one Flyers writer aside from myself and Steve.
Well, I found you another one. He's doing his piece now, and me and Steve just co-wrote an article today for you. He did all of the research for it and then figured out that he can't write, as he has no idea how to formulate sentences, apparently. So he sent me his research, his scribble.
The whiskey.
And I think it is, honestly. And then I wrote the paper. I wrote the article for him, and then he'll change what he wants, and then we'll submit that to the website. But yes, if you are interested in writing we're pretty well off on Phillies now, but I wouldn't turn it down. If you're interested in writing for the Flyers, you talk to Rob. If you want to write for the Eagles, you talk to Elle. And if you want to write for the Sixers, you talk to me. And if you're a female, talk to all of us, because none of you, despite numerous members and numerous listeners stating their displeasure that we do not have female hosts or co-hosts or writers, and they want a female's perspective, none of you want to write for us. So if you know a female that wants to, by all means, send them our way, send them the information, and let's get some variety to our style in writing. But we've kicked this around for 3 minutes and 10 seconds now before we talk to anything about Philadelphia Phillies baseball. I'm very angry. I feel as though I am the Seinfeld episode of George is getting very angry. That's how I pace around my house now whilst watching this team or listening to this team. I have turned off more games than I've ever fucking remembered in my entire life. Certainly more so than any of the time throughout this entire rebuild period, which has taken for fucking ever. We were promised we were basically told this was going to be the season that turned things around, and here we are, a less than stellar team, less than the pace of last season, a team that was supposed to suck. I'm angry. I'm only talking this much to give you enough time to sit there and chew your food, by the way. But this Phillies team right now is the most maddening team in sports, and I stand by that forever, and I now have to agree with LJ that the Eagles do run our town, because I am left with no arguing material to prove otherwise.
Well, the Eagles have run Philadelphia for at least as long as I can remember. So I've never had an argument in terms of what L was putting out there. It's always been an Eagles town, but the Phillies,
I think you guys are right.
they had a chance. They had a chance to kind of turn things around, and with the Bryce Harper signing and all that, kind of turn it into a baseball town. Obviously, have not done that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the Eagles preseason starting.
Yeah, man. I need football in a way that I didn't think that I did. And I need it. L was right. He's always right. Drives me crazy. He fills our black book up with wins in terms of bets. And this is one we didn't even bet on. He's just right about, and it's obnoxious. But we have to talk Phillies baseball because it has been about 10, 12 days. I went on vacation and was out. We published articles throughout that time, but we did not have an In Kap We Trust segment. So we are back with that. We do need to talk Philadelphia Phillies baseball. So this will be a fairly short segment tonight because we do have several segments lined up for the next, couple days at least. We'll have one with the writers eventually. I have one with Ty Daubert of the Painted Lines. And then obviously you and I will have a post-deadline show as well. So let's just get started with a handful of things now. I'm sure one of us or both of us will get angry and we'll end up irrationally closing the segment because we don't want to talk anymore, but let's give it a go anyway. Let's start with the rotation.
Shit.
Anyone outside of Aaron Nola, you could take any human on the planet, baseball talent or not, and they would basically provide the same result as 2 through 5 or 2 through 6 in our rotation. We have Aaron Nola, who seems to have regained his form, save for a few pitches last start. Then we have Bone Spur Jake, Headcase Nick, Heavy F, which is still weird, Vinny, ironically named Velo at 93 miles an hour, Quad A Cole, meh Smiley, and now we have the most unattractive man in baseball in Jason Vargas, who is going to apparently punch the throats of all Philadelphia media members, if you believe that the media in Philadelphia is as damning as that in New York.
Well, if he can punch out Angela, I would be in support of that.
Me too.
Not that condone violence, but
we have. I would make the exception there as well. And we had an article from one of our newest writers. He's going to write on everything. He'll be a Phillies writer too. But our new guy, Pete, who we know nothing about, we're not allowed to. It's a gimmick show. And I love it. So I'm going to have fun trying to figure out who is working for me and who is working for ANYP. But Pete put out an article about Angelo Cataldi and his ridiculousness as well. So that did make me laugh that's the first name that you put out there. But here we are, one starting pitcher off the market officially, as the Mets, who make no sense at all, have acquired Marcus Stroman, who would have been a hell of a lot of fun in Philadelphia. And when you look at the package that was sent over for him, very underwhelming. And as we are apt to do in Philadelphia, we like to sit here and think, how the hell could we have not beat that offer? That seems to be a mainstay at every single deadline so long as Clintack is here, and I think it's just going to continue to be that. Before we get into some of the Phillies stuff and some options here and diagnosing our rotation, what the fuck are the Mets doing? They're looking to trade. They traded us Vargas, who's having an actually semi-okay-ish season for a number 4 or 5. They want to trade Wheeler. They want to trade Thor. They have DeGrom and now Stroman and what? They want to trade Frazier out of third base. They make no fucking sense. There's no identity to that team.
I think it's just that they want to. I mean, I honestly have no clue what's going on up there. The Mets kind of do their own thing. They're a mess of an organization. But really? If I had to guess, it's just that they want to get younger. I mean, I forget, how old is Stroman? Stroman's like 26. I want to say somewhere around there.
I think he's older than that. But
well, he's in his mid to late 20s, and you have Wheeler, who I think is approaching 30. Vargas is in his mid 30s. Todd Frazier is in his mid 30s. I just think it's a matter of the Mets wanting to get younger while at the same time trying to stay, semi-competitive and not do a full-on rebuild. That's my only guess what they're trying to do there.
Yeah, I guess I have this weird thing. So I sit here and I think that the teams that are closest to competing within the Philadelphia Phillies supposed window or first window of championship style baseball, so for the next 5 years or so, teams that are closest are the Braves and the Nationals. The Nationals have a kick-ass rotation, and they bolstered it. The Braves have a rotation that is interesting, I want to say. They have talent there. They're very inconsistent. But you can tell that like they're in the market for additional starting pitching. They have Fulton Yevich right now that's down in AAA, who is not having a good season after a breakout year last year, but he has all the tools and makings to be able to do it. Gosman, quality pitcher who's been pretty underwhelming to this point. Then you take a look at the Mets, and in theory, they should have a good rotation, but maybe not for the next 5 years. The Phillies have built only an offense. How do you combat that? You sit there and you have a rotation that has names like Scherzer and Patrick Corbin. That's how you beat this team. That's how you beat the Philadelphia Phillies. It's almost as if, to me, when I saw that news, I was like, oh, I guess the Mets are just looking to extend the possibility of competing and doing it by acquiring starting pitching and kind of taking the Nationals route. They have enough young talent over there in New York that they should be better than they are. So, but I don't trust the Mets for shit. And I don't understand the logic with anything at this point. I mean, fuck. What an interesting division. This year was not supposed to go this way. But let's dive into the Phillies rotation real quick. We'll give each of these garbage pitchers just a little bit of time here for venting or analysis or whatever it is that we choose to do. We will not speak on Aaron Nola because he's not doing anything wrong right now, and that's a good thing. So Aaron Nola, you get a bye week for ANYP. Let's go to Bone Spur Jake. How bad do you feel for Jake Arrieta right now, or do you think that he's such a dick that who cares?
I don't feel bad for him because, like you said, he is a dick. I did go on my 15 thoughts, the most recent one that I posted, and I kind of went back a little bit on some of the things that I had said about him because in the two starts after it was announced that he had bone spurs, he actually pitched pretty decently. But then, I went to the game on Friday night. He came out and he looked pretty bad. And then Quad A Cole, as you call him, came in and just, more salt on the wound there. But Arrieta, he is what he is. He's going to be, for the rest of the season and probably the rest of his career, he's going to be a mid-4s ERA kind of guy. Maybe a little bit more, maybe closer to 5. Definitely not a capable number 2 starter. If they were able to bolster the rotation somehow and put him in as a 4 or 5, he would work out well there, but definitely not a number 2 quality starter. And that's why I've been so critical of him. That and the fact that when he doesn't pitch well and he faces the media after the games, he's the first person to throw the rest of his teammates onto the bus while not taking a whole lot of responsibility himself. So, A, to answer your question, no, I don't feel bad. And B, that's what I feel about Jake throughout the rest of the season. He's not going to be any better than he is right now.
Yeah, he's not what he was. He's not what we assumed he would be when we acquired him. Certainly not what we're paying for. He's not a number 2. And he's definitely not a number 2 now that he's got the bone spur thing in his elbow. I actually do kind of feel bad for Jake. If I'm kind of okay in games that are lost, and if you're going to leave a pitcher out there to prove a point. So those rare instances in today's baseball where you see starting pitchers out there in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th inning, whatever it may be, and they've already given up 7, 8, 9, 10 runs, and their manager's just sitting there saying, well, you're going to just stay in this fucking game and eat innings at this point because the game's lost and I'm not burning someone. Like that, I think I'm cool with that. I'm like, leave his ass out there. When you're pitching hurt and you're pitching out of necessity hurt because there's literally no one else better, even than you at like 65%, I just feel bad for anyone in that situation that's being – the pressure is there to pitch. Can you imagine if he came out in public and said, I cannot pitch any longer after pitching 3 or 4 times?
He would get destroyed by the media and by the fan base.
Oh, yeah. And that's so not fair. I mean, I don't have bone spurs in my elbow. I don't have anything wrong with my shoulder. It gets sore sometimes. I don't want to play. He's pitching with it every 5th day. Something significantly more than my arm kind of hurts today. And he's doing it because he fucking has to. So I feel bad for that. I blame Clintack 100% for the fact that he has still not addressed that. The moment that became evident and that came out, I would have been immediately on the phones for multiple starting pitchers, and we have now acquired multiple starting pitchers, and that is what it is. They're just very underwhelming, but that is what it is. Let's move into Headcase Nick for a second. So I am a big Nick Pivetta fan. I'm going to say it. He's got to go. I feel as though he has the ability, if he's not going to develop a third and fourth pitch, or at least a third one, he has the ability to be a very, very effective bullpen piece, whether it be a multi-inning use kind of guy. We've seen the Hader type of comparisons, saying that he could be that for the Phillies, or if he was just a one inning guy, a seventh, eighth, or ninth inning guy. I think he has the stuff to do that. He has the high, the high velocity fastball with the high spin right curve that actually work out to be and grade out to be one of the top pitches in baseball, or top curveballs in baseball. But he is such a fucking mess mentally, and I don't trust him. And I feel as though the way that he handled the demotion to the bullpen was poor. I felt like he handled the demotion to AAA really well. His approach was good, and he came back and he looked right. And I felt like the first hint of failure for him again, or struggle, he turned back into Headcase Nick, and I don't know that you're ever going to get him back. I don't think Philadelphia is the spot for him, and I heard it on High Hopes Pod with James and Jack. One of them, I don't recall who at this point, said that they could see him traded at this deadline, and I think that that's a real possibility. What do you think? Do you think that whether it be him or Vinny, who do you think is more likely to get moved?
I don't know. That's a tough call. I think that if I had to pick one, I would go with Nick, just because, to me, and I think in the eyes of most people, he has a little bit higher upside than Velasquez does. He's a little bit, Velasquez is consistently okay to mediocre. He racks up a high pitch. He's not a good starter. He racks up a high pitch count through, can't make it out of 5 or 6 innings. But Pivetta, when he's at his absolute best, we saw him go out there against Cincinnati and throw a complete game. So you have a higher ceiling with Nick Pivetta than you do with Velasquez. The thing about Nick is, like you said, he's a head case. When he gets into these, little ruts that he gets into, sometimes it takes him a while to pull out of it. He's so inconsistent. You'll get 5 or 6 great starts in a row from him, and then he'll just be complete shit for the next 5 or 6 starts. So I think if the Phillies can sell teams on the best that he can be and the potential that he has, then yes, Nick Pivetta will be the most likely to be moved there. I want to be a fan of Nick because I've seen what he can do on the mound, but it's so incredibly frustrating because every time he starts to pitch well, eventually he regresses into being, as you call it, that Headcase Nick, where he can't get out of the 3rd or 4th inning, and he's giving up home runs, and he's walking guys, and he's not commanding his pitches the way that he can. So, but yeah, if I had to pick between the two of those, most likely to be dealt, I would go Nick Pivetta.
Yeah, I think selling on Nick as a bullpen piece and saying, hey, look, in limited opportunity, you've seen how good he can be at shutting down situations. That 3 inning is a shutout ball, and I think 2 appearances before that, he had 2 innings where he looked pretty clean. I think there's something to be sold on that. I'm a fan of his, but I would be very, very open and active to moving him right now. But going into heavy F, you remember it 2 weeks ago on our show when we were making second half predictions. I said that I felt that, after several rough outings and, a lot of struggles and looking not right, I felt like Zach Eflin, after that All-Star break, that he would be able to come back and put together a second half that kind of mirrored what he did in the first, 6, 7, 8 starts that he had this season. I've been very, very wrong with him, and he has looked beat mentally. He has looked not fresh physically. He doesn't look right, and he's still in the major league rotation. It doesn't make any sense to me. And Gabe continues to say, yes, in 5 days, Eflin's going to be out there.
Took him out of the rotation today, I believe, from what I heard. Vargas is going to take his spot. Yes.
Okay, so now that is fucking telling. For as bad as Eflin is, we are still going to pitch a broken down Jake Arrieta in pain rather than Eflin. Like, fuck, man. Like, that's how bad he is right now. He's someone I do
Phillies,
genuinely feel bad for. I genuinely feel bad for Zach Eflin. I feel like he is. I don't even feel like there's like that mental like anger that he has when things go wrong. I feel like it's like he's being punched in the dick repeatedly by life, and he just can't take it anymore. And it's like any hint of anything, you see it. He has that Nara steer in the headlights, bad body language look, and he just looks defeated. And when he gets taken out of these games and the camera's flashing on him in the dugout, man, he just looks confused and rattled. Like, how is this what is happening right now? What I was able to do for my first 7, 8, 9 starts of the season, how do I look like this now? What is happening? And I don't know how you fix it, man. I genuinely don't.
It's really rough to watch. Just watching him, I mean, myself with my terrible shoulder that can barely throw 30 feet, I could probably throw better than he has been over his last handful of starts. But, you know, with the way that he's looked and the fact that he even said himself that he just feels heavy out there, I mean, you could think injury first off, but you hope it's not something deeper than that. You know, that you hope that it's not something in his head or some sort of a physical ailment that goes deeper than just being an injury. So that's the first thing that comes to mind with me, especially with him looking fatigued, feeling heavy, and just pitching like complete garbage of late.
Yeah, like I said, he's tough to figure out right now. And when I look at him, man, I genuinely, like, my frustrations are there. Like, I am bitterly angry watching him pitch. But then the second he starts walking off the mound, it's dude, I feel like that's how I'm going to feel if I have a son one day and he's on the high school pitching mound and he gets lit up and he looks like he wants to cry. I'm going to be like, fuck, man, I want to cry too. Like, I feel so bad, like lost puppyish bad for this guy. And I don't understand why, because I've never really been a fan of Zach Eflin, but just looking at him, I feel for whatever he has going on, and I don't even know what that is. So it's super interesting right now. And I hope that whatever is ailing him physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it may be, that, you know, it writes itself out for him. You know, you don't wish those kinds of things on anybody.
You also hope that he's not hiding an injury either. Say if there's something going on with his shoulder or his elbow or something like that, and he's not revealing it to the trainers because he just wants to go out there and try to grind it out, you hope that he's not doing that, because he's only, I think he's what, like 26? 25, Eflin? 26?
Yeah, he's mid-20s.
So he's got potentially a whole career ahead of him. You don't want to ruin a long career by hiding an injury at this point, just a couple of years in.
Yeah, man, I agree, and look, I hope nothing for the best for him. And if he's taken out of the rotation into the pen, if he's put on the IL with something, whatever it may be, I genuinely hope that it writes itself out for him. We touched on it a little bit. I don't really want to talk too much about Vince Velasquez, but Vinny ironically named Velo at 93 miles per hour. It's strange to me, and can we just talk for 1 second about the Philadelphia Phillies call Vince Velasquez, a guy who averages like 93.4 on his fastball, Vinny Velo, when 3/5 of every other rotation in baseball has fastballs that average 94, 95 plus. Every bullpen in baseball has guys that are power arms and wipe out sliders. And the Phillies have just, I don't know, never, ever drafted or traded and acquired for a talent like that. I fucking hate it, man. I hate Vince Velasquez.
I think everybody does. I think a lot of us, myself included, we're just ready for this Vince Velasquez experiment to end and him to just, go play for another team. But what else do we have right now?
Oh, we don't. And again, that's going to bring me to the point that we're going to end with on this particular topic. But, I do feel like the fan base has been asking for it for a long time. And I understand the organization's thought process about giving him as many opportunities and chances in the rotation to win a spot and keep a spot as possible. Acquiring him as the main piece of a trade, and a trade that featured Mark Appel, who never played for us and retired, a former number 1 overall pick who never made it to the show, which is unfucking believable. And several other pieces that mean nothing or who are not even here anymore. I understand the organization's infatuation with giving him the shot. but you can't continue to be ignorant to that, which is our front office has done completely with our pitching staff since McPhail and since Clintack came in. It's been brutal. The only thing that they've ever truly acquired pitching wise is Charlie Morton, who we had him before his true breakout. Like we had him and then he tore his hamstring, and then it was like we never had him. And then obviously, paying top dollar for Jake Arrieta, which was at the time the best or most coveted starting pitching free agent, and that is what it is. But
that blew up in our face.
Yeah, man, that's just another one of those really unfortunate things. And man, Jake Arrieta. But Vince Velasquez, Vinny Velo at 93 miles an hour, which is ridiculous. It just goes to show you how poor the development and staffing department has been for so long. And we're just finally beginning to right that, over the last year or so. But then we have, other guys, like I said, Quad A Cole, who I feel bad for him. He is the ultimate, like, oh shit, someone's going in a 10-day DL and you need someone to start 2 games for you and then send their ass back down. Like, that's Cole Irvin, but he should never be up for anything else ever in his fucking life. And then we acquire Smiley and we acquire Jason Vargas, and Smiley is a guy who I think that benefited from pitching a game in Detroit against an offense that's not great and in a ballpark that's huge. He pitched in Pittsburgh.
He pitched in Pittsburgh. No, he was in Texas and Milwaukee.
No. I'm saying his first start as a Philly.
Oh,
he
at
pitched
Pittsburgh,
against.
yes.
Yeah. Never mind. Yeah, he pitched against Pittsburgh, and actually, it's not a terrible start now that I remember it. But regardless, he's a guy who hasn't been anything since he was a really, really good pitcher before Tommy John in Tampa Bay, but he's never really regained that. So I don't really know what to expect from him. And then again, Jason Vargas, he's 100 years old, and he's like again another just 4 or 5 guy. Who I saw his home road splits. He pitches very well at Citi Field and very, very fucking bad everywhere else. So I'm curious to see what will happen. I think that for every start that he has, we should let him play at Williamsport because he dominated us against Nick Pivetta there last year, which is
when he came in
fucking
with
absurd.
a 7-something ERA came into that game, and the only guy who hit him was I think Carlos Santana hit a home run off of him.
So there you go. Just ridiculous. So I think all for the duration of his starts this year as a Philly, they all need to be played at Williamsport, since he apparently has no issue pitching there. But the biggest thing here is the ignorance and the blind ignorance from the front office towards this pitching staff. And we'll get into deadline things shortly. But let's move into just kind of the state of things in the NL right now. We entered that Braves series 5.5 back, and the opportunity to bring it to 2.5 back and really, really change the minds of the fan base, change the minds of the organization nearing the deadline. Obviously Andy McPhail came out and had, his quote pregame 2 weeks ago stating that they are not one piece away from the World Series and they do not believe that they are World Series contenders this year, essentially is what he said. They had an opportunity to really change that. If you come out there with some convincing wins against the team that has a 5.5 game lead against you and a run differential of 40, 60 runs in their 6, 7, 8 wins, whatever it is against us, that would have been huge. And they came out and they laid 2 fucking miserable eggs in which I lost or turned off both games right away. That's absurd. That is a team that is just not ready. I'm not even convinced at this point to state that they are ready for wild card contention. State of the NL right now, knowing that we've watched a lot of Braves games, we've watched a lot of Nationals games. The Mets are making moves right now, and then there's the Phillies. Has your stance kind of changed at wild card as an attainable goal, or do you feel as though there's just nothing there that says this team is a postseason baseball team?
Well, the wild card is still an attainable goal, and I think the Phillies still should be considered a favorite to land at least a second wild card spot. But that's not a compliment to the Phillies. That's more or less that's just how bad the rest of the National League is. I mean, we got the Cardinals who have been playing decent ball lately. They're contending for that second wild card spot. The Brewers are up there. San Francisco has climbed into it, but really, just the quality of the teams that are not division leaders in the National League, it's very poor. and that's the reason why the Phillies still have a chance to nab that second wild card spot. So, yes, I do think that they are a wild card team. No, it is not a compliment to them. It's just how bad the National League is this year. So, with that being said, I think they are, with that standard and consideration, they are a playoff team. They're not a good one, but they are a playoff team.
I feel like that's a fair take and a fair assessment right now of the state of this team and the state of the NL as a whole.
It's like a football team that wins a division with like a 7-9 record.
Yeah, that's true. And with that, and football's obviously a little different. The parity there is completely different than any other sport. And a 7-9 team can make noise in the playoffs in the NFL, and we've seen it. But getting into the postseason, you have an opportunity. You can get hot at the right time and get yourself in there. I mean, look at the Rockies of 2007. That they were able to do, to go worst to first. Really impressive stuff. So, I mean, just getting in there is going to be so critical for this team this year. It's important for the fan base. It's important for the organization. It's important to learn and have that growing experience. So I hope to God that they do enough, kind of move the margins type of thing and make affordable upgrades. At this point, even just bottom line major league talent is fine right now. It's better than throwing Nick Pivetta and better than throwing Vince Velasquez and, well, fuck, everyone not named Aaron Nola. So we have got 2 starting pitchers that we acquired. We got 2 more that we need to move. So keep working them phones, Clintac. So here's another interesting point. I want to bring up this one. I wanted to kind of end this segment a little sooner. So we'll skip some of this stuff and save it for, especially the mailbag. We'll save the mailbag for the writers section. But a lot has kind of come out about the way that the players are responding in post-game interviews. So one thing that people loathed about Gabe Kapler last year was that they couldn't connect to him and his positive message and just never say die kind of attitude, which is fine. The players are very clearly embracing this. When you sit there and Eflin or Pivetta or whomever, sits there and says, no, I had a good game. It's just, I missed on a few pitches and they damaged them. Well, if you miss on 7 pitches and you only threw 70 pitches before you got pulled, that's not exactly a great percentage. What is your thought right now on the clubhouse as a whole? Do you feel like at a certain point there needs to be I don't want to say like some outburst from Gabe or from the players, but we saw how much the fan base responded from Gabe getting ejected from games this year now and showing that kind of emotion and showing frustration and tight-lippedness in his post games. What would make you feel better about our clubhouse right now in terms of the way that they respond to things from the media?
Well, what you just said, they're going out there in post-game interviews and they're saying that they played well when they didn't, which to me, I mean, I think the only guy who's consistently been critical of himself and admitted when he hasn't played well so far this season is Bryce Harper. The other guys, Arrieta, will go out there and give up 5 runs and say that he thought he threw the ball well. Eflin, the same thing the other day. And that's not good because it means that they're not setting a high enough standard for themselves. If they're going out there and they're getting blown up, if they're getting hit hard and still saying that they thought they threw the ball well, when obviously they don't have high enough expectations, high enough standards for themselves. As a starting pitcher, you need to have the mindset that you're going to go out there and throw like at least, 7 innings of 3 or 4 run ball, something respectable, a quality start. And if you do less than that, you shouldn't be happy with it. So to go out there and get blown up and still come off sounding positive about it, that's not good. That sets a bad standard for the team. And I think that Gabe does need to address that. And I think that the players need to address it. They need to set higher standards for themselves if they want to have any chance of making noise in October this year.
So my thought to all of this is here, I'm losing my voice and having audible cracks now. My thought to all of this is the fact that it's weird to me we live in the city of Philadelphia that is incredibly passionate, and we are not overly politically correct all the time. We are irrationally angry at things or incredibly emotional when good things happen. But we have so much, like, I don't want to say attitude. I feel like that's the wrong word, but we have a lot of personality towards our sports teams. It's weird that in a city that I would believe would be probably among the least who are into participation awards and things of the sort, like this coddled kind of, society that we live in now. It's weird to me that our city is as blue collar and work for everything and hard nosed. But our baseball team in the clubhouse is, I pitched okay. 90% of my pitches were where they were supposed to be. The other 10 landed in the fucking seats. Well, you're a fucking idiot. You lost the game 15-2. Like, I want you to come out and I want you to talk about the one pitch that you fucked up that changed the complexion of the game. If you fuck up one pitch and you win 7-2, you don't have to talk about it. But if you're losing 15-2, if you're losing, 13-6, 13-7, whatever game 2 was in that series, do not come out here and insult us by saying you only missed a pitch. I appreciate the positivity in the clubhouse for itself that is away from the cameras, but your image needs to reflect the city you live in. Philadelphia doesn't need that shit. We felt disconnected from Gabe all year last year, for better or for worse. I love Kapler as a manager. I still think that he has the opportunity to be a very good manager here in Philadelphia. But this is something that if you want to address your clubhouse in the manners that Gabe does and his staff does and this organization does behind closed doors, okay. But if I'm Gabe Kapler, if I'm Chris Younger, if I'm John Malley, if Rhys Hoskins goes 0 for 9 in a series with runners in scoring position in key moments of the game, do not tell him it's okay to go in front of the media and say, yeah, I thought I had some good swings today, just didn't break my way. No, you need to acknowledge the failure here for the fan base. You cannot be so disconnected and just disillusional. It doesn't work. If Jake Arrieta or anyone in our rotation goes out there and gives up 6 home runs on 6 badly missed pitches and we lose 15-2, don't go out there and say, I felt good, I just missed a few spots and they capitalized on it. Well, that's fucking wrong. Like, that is not what we need to hear. You need to come out here and be able to connect with this city and connect with these fans, because we will leave for that before we ever leave for your poor performance. If you feel disconnected on you or about you, you will be the one that we sit there and says, I hope to God you're out of this city. That's why people want Nick Pivetta moved right now. It's not necessarily because he isn't pitching well. There is talent there, and a lot of people, smart fans, can see that. But he is an asshole, and he's just a head case. Reflect the personality of this city. Connect with your fan base. In a world where social media takes over everything, snapshots just kind of appear, and that just inflects the opinions of everyone, and that's it. You've got to be smarter about this. You cannot be that delusional. That is my mini rant on the clubhouse persona as a whole.
And really, these interviews that they're giving, it kind of reflects a lack of emotion in the team. I mean,
yeah, it's as if they don't care.
Yeah, when's the last time one of the Phillies batters struck out and snapped the bat over their leg, or went on a tirade and started beating the crap out of the bat rack in the dugout? I mean, you don't see any emotion out of them. I would rather see a starting pitcher come out of the game and do what Trevor Bauer did the other day and chuck the baseball over the center field wall out of frustration, as opposed to doing these post-game interviews. Oh, I pitched well today. No, you didn't. You should be mad at yourself. You should have the level of frustration where you want to chuck a baseball over the outfield wall. I want to see that emotion from the players, and we haven't seen it this season.
I think that's a really, really solid way to put it. As passionate of a fan base as we are watching a dead clubhouse and just disconnected interviews at this point. And I'm not prepared to sit here and say that I need to see baseballs thrown over the center field wall or bat racks and phones beaten or water coolers thrown out or anything, but I need to see something. And when you get the opportunity to speak, because it is part of their jobs now more than ever in sports, is to connect with the fans and to create an image and persona that follows your on-field talent as well. Be fucking honest about what is going on. I don't need you to stand up there and curse the way that we do on this podcast and lash out on things, but do not insult us. You didn't just miss 3 or 4 pitches. You missed 3 or 4 pitches that got tagged. There may have been another 15 that you fucked up too. You've got to be honest with this shit. You've got to be honest with our fan base. That's the biggest thing I can say is we feel so disconnected from a team that we were so excited about, and it has been so easy to fall out of love with the Philadelphia Phillies this season because of the way they've handled business in the front office and because of the way that they've handled their business in the media. 2 different ways they've had the opportunity to continue to draw us back in, and they're failing in both capacities, and that's a serious, serious fucking problem.
You know what showing emotion does? It shows the fan base that you know that you're capable of doing so much better and you're not happy with failing to meet expectations. When you don't show emotion, it shows that, A, you believe that you are what you are and you're content with what you put out there.
Yeah, it's acceptance at this point, and that's it doesn't go over well here. We sit here and we still, as overly cliche as it is, we still use the Rocky, it's not about how many times you get it, hit, it's how many times you get up, and all the bullshit like that, and all the cliches of our city. And this team doesn't seem to have that cliche fight that we want to be known for. So a maddening season to say the least. So we'll wrap this up with 2 final thoughts here. Like I said, we're a little short on this one, and we have several segments that are coming up in conjunction with the trade deadline. But talking on trade deadline, obviously Stroman goes today. What is your stance? We've acquired now 2 pitchers for basically nothing. They do fill holes. They are not great, but they are better than what we had, which really says a fucking lot. What do you do if you are the Philadelphia Phillies? Do you go ahead and try to acquire an additional starting pitcher? We have not been linked, by the way. I'm still checking my phone to fucking anyone. So they seem to be out on Boyd, Bumgarner, Ray, and Greinke at this point. I don't know what they're going to do, but if you were Clentak, what do you do?
Well, if I'm Clentak, given the situation and what's going on this year, I hate to say it, but I'm playing for next year instead of this year. I don't want to give up on this season because the team, offensively at least, they have enough talent that if they can ever figure things out, they can go on a run. But I'm more focused on playing for next year. You're going to get McCutchen back next year. You're going to get a couple other guys who are going to be healthy next year. You have a chance to make a splash in the offseason and bring in a couple solid starting pitchers who actually belong in a major league rotation. So I hate to say it again, but if I'm Clentak, I'm waiting until the offseason. I'm making big moves in the rotation then, and I'm playing for next year.
Yeah, I think my approach would be similar. I'm not prepared to sit here and say that I wouldn't make moves. I would. They would just be the kind of moves that we've seen thus far. Be the Smileys, be the Jason Vargases, and just hope that acquiring talent that is even just 1% better than what we've thrown out there is enough, and maybe solidify some different roles. Our bullpen is beat. We got more bad news on Robertson, and we're going to need guys in the bullpen. So if F can handle it, if Vinny can go back there, if Pavetta's there, great. The one thing I would like to see is Jake Arrieta not pitching, and oddly enough, not because I loathe the guy, but rather just because he's hurt, and I just feel fucking bad for that. So I would acquire one more if it got Jake out of the rotation, and then let whoever is then shifted to the pen start to gain some confidence in a new role and see how the pieces fall. This team, as bad as they have played and as maddening as they have been, you said it, there is offensive talent there. And, imagine if these guys get hot at the same fucking time. We saw our offense all get hot for the same time for a few short innings in that 3rd game of the Atlanta series, where for the first time all year, Realmuto, Harper, and Hoskins all went deep. It's big. Yeah. Then add Hazley, future Hall of Famer Hazley, to that mix, who also went deep that night. I think that was his 2nd inning home run. I don't remember.
Yes, the one that barely cleared the wall out in center.
That is correct. Well, it didn't barely clear. It still hit 410. I think it went over like 5 feet.
It went over the 409 sign. It was 411.
Yeah.
It cleared by 2 feet. But, yeah, I mean, if Vargas over Eflin in the rotation can be the difference between winning a 7-6 game and losing a 7-6 game, then obviously that's an improvement. But I'm not sold on it.
I'm not sold on either of them, but I feel like these are the types of things that they can do. They went out and got those two pitchers. They went out and got Logan Morrison. So, we in theory could have what Jay Bruce was supposed to be for us, and have a guy off the bench, a left-handed power bat off the bench. He's honestly played too well.
For return, by the way, any news on that?
Jay Bruce, I don't know. I mean, theoretically, he can come back anytime. I think his 10 days, is up. His time served, but it was oblique, right?
I believe so. Yes, oblique.
I remember it happened on a swing, but it happened. I was listening on the radio at my game that night, so I didn't see the swing. But yeah, I just assume when he went out mid at bat with like that, probably oblique, but whatever. I don't know when he comes back, and I don't know how things shake out when he does, but we could use his bat. So, but like I said, we're going to have several additional episodes this week. Again, sorry we missed the last week's show, or last 10 days, whenever the hell it was. I was on vacation, but we will have content back. Before we do, want to remind you a word from one of our sponsors, the Jackdolls. You know them for our intro outro music. The Jackdolls finally have their website back up and running. They are a folky kind of, I mean, well, you hear their music, a folky kind of rock band.
Aren't they like Celtic rock kind of?
Yeah, like an Irish rock.
Yes.
It's they write most of their own stuff. You can see them at any Renaissance fair. I know that they travel with one of the tours. I don't know which one it is. I should probably find that information out since they are one of our sponsors. But again, you can go to their website. It is www.thejackdolls. You can also find them on any of their social media pages called The Jackdolls. And then again, continue to support them as you have supported us. They have t-shirts and CDs and different cool things like that on sale on their websites and at their shows. So be sure to support them. They are quality musicians, and not enough respect goes out to musicians these days. And they are certainly one to or who earn it. In my humble opinion, they are quite good. But that is going to be it here for In Kap We Trust. For the Always Next Year podcast, you can visit us on Twitter. It's at ANYP Podcast, or our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. Be sure to leave ratings and reviews on our iTunes pages. We are rapidly approaching the point where I have to sing for you, and that should be fucking miserable, but we appreciate it if you get us there. Rob still owes one of our listeners a bottle of whiskey and a signed picture of his face, so you should probably jump on that, sir. That one
Working
goes
on
to...
it. Need to get that
done.
picture printed out first.
I will print it out for you. And then I also, that was a different segment, but I do have to find that monkey for you, for your neighbor. But see, things are blending together right now as I'm trying to close this show out. I'm looking at two separate pages of notes in front of me, forgetting what the fuck show I'm talking on. That's how you know it's been a long day.
I'm just amazed that the Phillies made it to the second inning and they're not losing yet.
Well, there you go. Positives. But that'll be it here for In Kap We Trust, the Always Next Year podcast. He is Rob. I am Shane, and we will see you in a few days.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such eager my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.